This is a continuation of my customization of the cold steel katana. I went on Temu and I had found a few options of handles I could use to replace this polypropylene handle. With this really nice leather one with real race skin, this other polypropylene dragon head, and then a regular silk wrap that I had previously. So I had to decide which option I wanted to use to put on the katana. So as I'm going over that, step one is I need to melt off this handle. There's a lot of ways you could have done this, but you could cut it off, but it was pretty hard material. So I opted to melt it off. So if you're going to be doing this, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area, and it is not a fast process. I heated it up till it got soft. I used an old butter knife to scrape it off. Kind of flipped it over, rinse and repeat. When I got it mostly down, I sanded it to get all the burrs off. At this point, the entrance or the area there in the handle was a lot tighter than the tang of the machete was. So I marked off the dimensions of what I needed to grind down. It kind of tapers a bit, the handle itself kind of curved. So I had to straighten it up a bit, put on some guidelines where I needed to grind so it would be able to fit into the dragon head katana. Again, yes, surprise, of course, I went with the dragon head katana. It's kind of a shout out to my boy Duncan MacLeod from the Highlander in the 90s. So once I had it marked off how far I wanted to grind, I knew that pencil mark wasn't going to hold. So I went ahead and taped off just so I have a straight edge of exactly what I needed to grind out there. So just make sure you keep it nice and straight so you will be able to not lose where you are in the grind process. I started with a small little Dremel with a carbide head just to mark it. It does, again, anything nice doesn't go fast, so I had to really just mark it down, and then as you'll see later on, there's a few steps that I did to get down to that grinding edge. This is something I wanted to do for a while. In my part 1 video, if you go back and watch, I made the sheath for it, and I just really wanted to give it a custom look, completing with the handle. As you can see here, the Dremel tool did not work as fast as I would like it to have. So I went to the big guns with the sander, really kind of grinded down to that marked area that I'd had to. I am working on one side here, so soon after I ground down to the area, I'd have to just flip it over, grind it. Again, always checking to make sure that I didn't go past. In hindsight, I'd probably want to dip it in water every now and then just so it can stay cool and we don't lose the temper of the machete. But yep, right there, it looks like it was a little hot. Again, just take your time, grind down to the proper areas, just checking it every time so you don't go past the grind lines. Now there was one hole in the handle that you could put a pin through to hold it straight. So I put the handle on, marked off where the pinhole would be. And then I found out very quickly this is very tough metal. So I tried a few times with the bit and pretty much gave up on it. If you saw pretty closely, there are previous holes in the tang of the previous holes in the tang. So I had a kind of a better idea, knowing that I was going to epoxy it. As that epoxy fills the handle, it would actually go through the holes and kind of lock it in itself. So here I'm just trying to give a few extra shots and decided I was going to go just the epoxy route, and those holes would hold the structure of it. I had my teammate, employee slash son, Mr. Gavin there, kind of holding it straight for me. I'm taping off that hole so nothing would pour through and destroy the handle. So I didn't want anything to leak through. So I went ahead and just taped the handle off, knowing that there was going to be a lot of overflow whenever I pushed the tang through the handle, and I did not want to mess it up. So just some good painter's tape there should be able to protect it. Again, you see here I'm scoring the handle, so when the epoxy meets the bottom of the handguard, that it will adhere to it and have a good weld. This is an old trick I always used to do anytime I mix an epoxy. Instead of wasting a dish, I just go ahead and just tape off the table there, and that catches all my overflow. So I scientifically make sure it's nice and straight by forcing it into the wood there. Now this is a quick set epoxy, and this was the highest strength epoxy I could find over the counter. So we just mixed a whole bunch of it there, knowing that probably a lot of that was going to pour out. But again, I'd rather have more than I need in that first go than having to mix it up a second time. Again, having to move fast, I made sure it was nice and mixed up, pouring it as best I could straight down the recessed area of the handle. Probably took it to about 3/4 of the way, knowing the displacement of the tang would force it out. Knew it was activated because the cup was getting fairly warm, so I tried to pour it nice and easy with no overspill, making sure I kind of pushed it down there to get rid of all the air bubbles if anything was caught. Just topping it off just a bit more. And then no time like the present, I went ahead and I got the sword, made sure all the burrs were clear, and nice and easy and nice and straight. I pushed the tang down to the handle. Of course, I'm making sure it's facing the right way. You can see here how it kind of pours out over the top. I quickly just kind of wiped it up there just so clean up after it dries would be a lot easier. And I just went ahead and used pressure to kind of lock it in. A few taps at the bottom there to make sure it's nice and set. And then it's time to wait. I gave it 24 hours to dry, so it could have a nice curing session and a nice solid lockup, knowing that it would work its way through the pre-existing holes of the tang. Now it's 24 hours later, and this is the fun part, where all the hard work pays off. First, I'm kind of working through, taking off all the tape that I had put on to protect the katana itself, making sure nothing bled through, and it actually worked very well. I was very happy with it. And obviously, if you watch my channel, or if you know me, I'm a very sword enthusiast here. And I do have to say that probably branched from the early Highlander days. So as you could see, having a inspiration handle of the Highlander was pretty exciting for me. Surprisingly enough, it was very sturdy. It felt very strong, nothing felt loose, and I was very happy with it. knowing that the work I put into making the sheath, now I have that final look of the dragon head katana there. It was very well balanced. As you can see, I'm going to swing it around here to kind of pretend that I know what I'm doing. Nothing shakes, nothing rattles. The pointed percussion was nice. Again, felt very balanced. This was a very satisfying build for me, and I appreciate you guys for staying along and watching the process. I got a lot of other projects in the works, so please stay tuned and continue watching. Thank you.